Throughout class, we have learned about how Indigenous land has been stolen over time. While we understand this, it has always felt far away. We didn't think it had an effect on us, but it ended up being a lot closer than we expected. In both Treaty 29 and Treaty 13, there were specific instances where land was stolen from Indigenous people in secretive ways and purposefully concealed by the government.
When Treaty 29 was signed in July of 1827, they created 4 reserves, one of which being located on Kettle Point and one located on Stony Point. In 1942, the people of Stony Point Reserve were given 2 weeks to vacate so that the land could be used for military purposes to create Camp Ipperwash. They were promised that come the end of World War II, the land would be returned to them. Unsurprisingly, this did not happen. In 1993, the Chippewas of Kettle and Stony Point sought the return of their land and began to protest, arguing that the land was built on important burial grounds. The federal government and the Chippewas of Kettle and Stony Point Nation signed an agreement in 2016 to return to Camp Ipperwash to the First Nations. It also gave Chippewas of Stony Point $95 million to invest in a brighter future.
In Treaty 13, the first and second Toronto Purchase took place. They bought 250,000 acres of land and only paid 10 shillings. In the first Toronto Purchase, it did not include the Toronto Islands, but in 1805, the Toronto Islands were included in the sale. But there's no conversation addressing this. The Mississaugas of the New Credit fought against the government because they added more land to the agreement and believed that the land was not paid for with a reasonable sum of money. In 2010, the Canadian government settled this claim for compensation of $145 million. This was the largest claim settlement in Canadian history.
What we have talked about today are just some examples of how Indigenous land was stolen. There are many more cases throughout history that showcase the disregard for Indigenous rights and land. Thank you for listening.